It's my pleasure to welcome you to this session on engaging students, prospective and current. So you're going to be hearing a lot today from enrollment management, from admissions, and from OSIS. And I want you to hear from me personally that this is an extremely important initiative. There's nothing more important than recruiting our students, bringing them here to campus, getting them admitted, getting them registered for courses. That's where the academic advising is so crucial, making sure they progress in the curriculum to graduation and pursue the career of their dreams. And as the president's often said, it's about the 3 R's of recruiting, registering, retaining. So I think if we as a community focus on that, we will all achieve a common goal that we want to see. Now, you'll be getting a lot of useful tips today. I want you to pay attention, and my expectation is that you will implement that advice as a way to better engage our prospective students. Regardless of our titles at the university, this is something that we all need to be engaged in. Just this morning, I was walking a student over to Cass in order to help him out. He had just come in from the Philippines and was very excited to start at Kane. So wonderful to see that excitement. So welcome to this session. I'm happy to support this effort in any way I can. I'm glad to see Marcia's here as well. She and I work closely together. So with that, I will introduce Executive Director of Enrollment Management Operations, Chad Osteen. Chad.
Thank you, Dr. Tony. Good morning, everyone. Thank you, everyone, for being here. As Dr. Tony said, this is Get Engaged, and we're going to be providing you resources for effective advisement, outreach, and communications with not only of our prospective students, but for our current and returning students, because they are just as important as any other student within the university. We have several different members of our community that are going to join us today to discuss their role in the effective outreach to our student population. We'll call them out one by one when their slides come up. I'll just be introducing everyone, and then we're going to show you some of the great tools that we've worked with our IT office, with student success and retention, with academic affairs over the past years to make your jobs a lot easier for your outreach efforts. We want to ensure that you have the tools necessary and at your disposal so that when you do your outreach to students, it's effective and it's meaningful. So the first thing I want to start by saying is I want to thank everyone in this room. And why am I thanking you? I'm thanking you because you have been amazing partners to enrollment management and to the university over the past 2 years. Over the past 2 years since we started making these phone calls, and we're talking about our accepted student phone calls, our advising phone calls, and all the phone calls that we make, and it does have tangible effects and results, and we'll share that a little later. We, as a community, have made over 20,000 phone calls in the past 2 years. That is an unbelievable feat, and I want to give everyone a round of applause. You should give yourself a round of applause because this is an amazing accomplishment. And as you may or may not be aware, over the past 2 years, we've had some of the largest incoming freshman classes in the history of Kane University. And that is because of the efforts that you do as faculty members, as advisors across the university, in enabling our students to start at Kane to get the appropriate advisement and to persist towards graduation to ensure they're graduating within 4 years, which is everyone's goal across the university now. So part of all of the outreach and the planning we have done, we've put together a comprehensive communication and outreach plan. And the first person I'm going to bring up today is Sandra Mazzara-Wheeler. She is our Associate Director in the Office of Undergraduate Admissions, and she's going to talk to you about the partnership we have, the faculty have with enrollment management in our phone call outreach campaign. Sandra?
Good morning, everyone. So, as Chad said, I'm a part of the admissions team, and my job today is to kind of fit all these pieces together. As you may know, we have a comprehensive communication outreach plan that we work on annually, we review it annually, we tweak it annually based on feedback from the campus community and based on enrollment data. And we collaborate with the campus community to execute this communication plan. What we're going to be speaking on today is going to be the phone call outreach, but I'll just give you a sampling of just some of the communication that we participate and we engage in within the Office of Admission and Enrollment Management. So we are partners in this. As a part of the larger plan, the admissions team makes about 4 proactive calls throughout the admissions cycle. We're constantly reviewing our data, and we make additional calls that are more responsive in nature based on what we are observing with trends with enrollment data, and we're comparing ourselves currently to the year before, and we're making additional tweaks to our phone campaigns. But what we're going to talk about mostly is the calls that are proactive in nature. So our academic partners are making 2 primary calls that are a part of our comprehensive communication plans. That is the open house, thank you for attending open house calls, and the accepted students congratulatory calls. So the open house calls that you're making, and you participate in this really big event that we host throughout the year, this is to prospective students. And these calls are very important in that we're engaging with these students who are still shopping, right? So they're still exploring a number of different institutions, and they're still kind of shopping, trying to get a feel for the type of schools that they might be interested in and the type of schools that they might want to apply to. So the fact that you're engaging with these students after open house is very important to our success, but the most important calls that you engage with are the calls to our accepted students. Now, these students have narrowed down the field, and they decided that they want to apply, and they're seriously considering Kane University. They hear from us throughout the cycle in various ways. So the calls that they get from you are particularly important because it's a different voice that they're hearing from. And it's an opportunity for them to get excited about the academic journey that they're about to embark on. So these are very important calls that we are asking you to make. So to just go over the key, the green calls with the P in front of the number are the descriptions of the phone calls that the academic community makes. The blue calls with the P in front of the numbers are the calls that we make as the admissions team in the enrollment management area. But as you can see, it's quite extensive. I won't go through every single one because we make a lot. We make them at the prospect phase, so you can see those, and we also make it at the applicant phase. We also make it after they've deposited and we're getting them excited about enrolling. So we're talking to them about placement testing. And a lot of this communication as well is email, and we listed them here too. Our focus is going to be mostly on congratulatory calls because I think those are the most impactful based on what we have been seeing with the data. And just give you some tips. I guess the admissions team and enrollment management provides you with a script to help you organize your thoughts and to make the calls. But there are 5 main messages. 3 of them are university generated, right? So there are main messages: affordability, location, and a world-class education. The other 2 messages are your opportunity to really talk to them about the benefits of enrolling at Kane University within your college more generally, and then more specifically within your major and your department. So these calls are really important because you're kind of connecting these dots for these students after they've gone through this long, extensive search. and they're at the admitted student stage. So we want to get them very, very excited about what comes next. So before you're calling them, I think it's really important to think about the messaging. Think about those things, and think about what's new and exciting within your college and your department. Because quite frankly, they hear from the admissions team and the enrollment side of things a lot. So it is great for them to actually hear and connect with you, our academic partners, to really talk to them about what it would be like in the classroom and why they should be super excited to come here to Kane University. So the quality of this call is extremely important. We want you, as best you can, to kind of relay that excitement of why a Kane education is the right fit for that individual student. And if you don't get them on the phone and you leave a message, that's okay. Messages are very impactful as well, because not many institutions are having faculty members engaging in these types of calls, especially not larger public institutions. So this is really a great opportunity for you as well to kind of set yourselves apart and to make this experience for them more personal. We provided you with a voicemail script for reference, but feel free to tweak it, use it as a guide, put in your personal touches that only you can do, and leave those voicemail messages for you. And then once you make the calls, we've made it easy so that you can kind of go through and do them. And Chad is going to talk to you about how we've made it easier to facilitate those calls for you. So I'll invite Chad back out to the stage. And thank you.
Thank you, Sandra. Sandra has really brought a lot of best practices in the industry to Kane University. She's been at Kane for almost a year now and really has done wonders with our admissions counselors in our outreach and our recruitment efforts. So we're really happy to have her on the team. Something that Sandra just mentioned, I think we should reemphasize, and that is what sets Kane University apart from our peers and competitors. And we know this anecdotally from our students and from their parents. We're one of the only universities that make these types of phone calls. So when a student is applying to anywhere from 8 to 12 universities and potentially getting 12 offers of admission, to get a phone call from a dean, from an executive director, from a faculty member on behalf of the program that they have been accepted into goes a very long way. It very well could set us apart and push them over the edge to making that commitment to Kane University, which is the most important thing in our application and enrollment process. So back to our faculty acceptance calls. If you recall last year and for the previous years, we've been distributing Excel spreadsheets and Google Sheets with rosters upon names of accepted students with outreach. We got a lot of feedback across the university, and we always take that feedback into making our process better for all those involved. So we've evolved the process, and we've moved our faculty acceptance calls into our CRM system. A CRM is a constituent relationship management tool that we've been using in enrollment management for a little over 5 years now. This is where we do all of our prospective student outreach, our application intake, the review process, the email marketing, and the text messaging. We're now bringing you as our faculty partners into this system, and we're going to be able to give you the tools to help you guide these calls, so we no longer have to distribute these calls on a weekly basis. We will be providing a follow-up training as well as a step-by-step visual that you will all be able to take home with you to help make these calls in the future. And like I said, these calls have an impact. Over 20,000 accepted phone calls have been made in the past 2 years. On top of that, we have brought in over 10,000 visitors to our open houses. And you as our faculty partners have also assisted us in making those follow-up congratulatory calls. So the faculty acceptance call is triggered 2 weeks after our admissions counselors make their call. We accept students on a daily basis to Kane University, and once the decision letter is generated by our enrollment management operations team, 2 weeks later, a phone call is triggered, is queued up for our admissions counselors to reach out to the applicant first. And that call is just to touch base with the student, to offer them a congratulations, and answer any questions they may have about the next step to enrollment. We have a very, very user-friendly tool on our website. If you go to www.kane.edu/accepted, those are the 5 steps to enrollment for freshmen, for transfer, and for graduate students. We have everything from how they make their deposit, how they register for NSO, how they submit their immunization form. Every little thing any incoming student will need to do is listed there. And I encourage you as faculty members to familiarize yourself with that, because it's a very resourceful tool, not only for these phone calls, but for any interaction you may have with our incoming students. So after our admissions counselor make this call, and they have been doing this within Recruit for the past 2 years, so we have refined this process. So at this point, we feel comfortable rolling it out to you as our faculty partners. 2 weeks later, the call then will be triggered, will be queued up for you. Within our system, we have it organized by college, and we can get as granular by department, by program, and so forth. Your calls really should use the information within the calls to guide your conversation. So depending on the time of year, let's say you're starting these calls in early March, we're going to want to invite students to our accepted student night in March. If it's in April, you're going to want to encourage them, if they have not already done so, to submit their FAFSA and to think about submitting their tuition deposit, as May 1st is the national tuition deposit deadline. And then so forth as we progress through the enrollment cycle. You know, look what's on the calendar, and we will provide you these talking points on a periodic basis that, you know, it's April, these are the points we want you to touch on. It's May, these are the points we want you to touch on, and so forth. And again, communicate with us. If something is not working, if you have a suggestion for us, if you have any comments or feedback, we take these to heart. We want to make this process as user-friendly and as useful for you. So right now, I'm just going to show you exactly what our Recruit database looks like. This is all web-driven. You can do this from the comfort of your offices. If you are able to access Kane systems at home, you could even do this from the comfort of your home. And to be honest, we have found that making these acceptance phone calls for 3:00 p.m. and later is the best time to do this, because any time before then, our students are in school, and if they're answering their cell phones, they might get in trouble. We don't want to put them in that type of position. So we're going to be providing everyone access to the system that is tasked with making faculty acceptance calls. We're working with each dean's office to get a list, and we're going to be creating accounts for everyone. Again, you would just open any web browser. We find that Firefox is the best program to use for these calls to access the system. However, you can access this with Internet Explorer, with Safari, with Chrome, what have you. But for best performance, we definitely recommend using Firefox. Once you get into the system, it's going to be a very easy navigation, and we will provide you again with a step-by-step guide on how to do that. When we access the system, we simply will click on this menu here. We click on Recruitment and Phone Calls. The phone calls will default to your respective queue, so there's not going to be any extra clicking around. This is just a test queue I have set up for the purposes of this demonstration. And this right here, these are 11 sample calls, but let's say you're a faculty member in the College of Business and Public Management. You're going to be calling your accounting students. You'll see the first record is an accounting admit. I'm simply going to open that record, and it gives us everything we need to make the phone call. So we're going to have the phone numbers, the home and the mobile phone number. the due date on the call. We do ask that these calls are made in chronological order as they're accepted, and they will be sorted within your queue based on the oldest to newest admitted student. So obviously we want to call the oldest student first because we want to ensure that touch points between the admissions counselor and everything else we're communicating with them on is followed up by your acceptance call. Further down, we have all the information which will be pre-populated from the application, everything the applicant gives us to help guide your call. So we see that this applicant is Chad Osteen. This is his email address, the program he was accepted into, the term, how they were admitted. So as you may or may not be aware, there's several different admission categories at Kean University, depending on the academic background of the student, as well as special applicant admit types, such as our Spanish speaking program, an EUF applicant, and so forth. And we have a guide within the system, so you see that our internal naming convention is an F1, but that's a traditional freshman admit. And then finally, the date the applicant was admitted. We also include if the applicant received a merit scholarship. Every incoming freshman and transfer applicant is automatically reviewed for academic merit-based scholarship by admissions counselors. We're incredibly transparent with this. You can go onto the scholarship website and you can see the merit scholarship awarding matrix. And if an applicant has this SAT or ACT score, this GPA, they get this amount of money. And we encourage students to sometimes retake the SATs or resubmit certain information to us, because if an applicant qualifies for another higher merit scholarship, we will re-award that student up until the semester starts. So that might be something that you want to bring up in your talking points to your students. A little further down, if you get that feedback from the applicant, let's say they retook their SATs and now they have a 1,300 on their SATs and they qualify for a trustee scholarship. If you put any text here, when you close out this call, an email will be generated automatically to the admissions counselor for the counselor to follow up with the applicant. And it could be anything from, I didn't get my financial aid package, how do I submit my immunization record? Anything that is more appropriate for the admissions counselor to address, simply put it there, and once you close out the call, it's going to shoot that email with the text there to the admissions counselor for them to perform some prompt outreach. If you do want to put any notes, we also do have that. If you want to look back, or if you need to do any reporting later on, you could also do that. The final two things I want to show you is that if you do not make contact with the accepted student and you leave a voicemail, if you simply toggle this to a yes and you mark the call complete, the system will send an automated email to the applicant on your behalf. And it's a very stock and generic email, just saying, we tried to reach you. This is who I am, a faculty member in this program. We're looking forward to having you to Kean. And if you have any follow-up, this is how you could reach me or the admissions office. And then once you close out this call by clicking Mark Complete, it disappears from your queue, and that's one call that you've made and one less to make. So we're gonna, I'll take any questions you may have at the end of the presentation. But again, I really just want to, from the bottom of my heart, to thank you for the partnership that you have had with us. It's making an impact and will continue to make an impact. So the next person I'd like to bring up is Dr. Neva Lozado. She is one of, again, a new member to the Kean community. She is heading up our Student Success and Retention Office with a focus on student success and persistence towards graduation. And she's going to talk about some of the initiatives her office has been undertaking and how we can continue that great partnership and the tools that we are providing to you to make your life as an advisor and faculty member a lot easier. Neva?
Thank you, Chad. Good morning, everyone. So it's without question that retention is a priority of this institution, and that is a shared responsibility amongst all of us. So one way to improve retention and the fact that we are removing obstacles or alleviating obstacles for students to make persistence toward timely graduation, one initiative is the Enroll.registered report, which I'm sure all of you are familiar with. So over the past 6 weeks or so, we have been working collaboratively and collectively in reaching out to all students on this report. And if you're not familiar, this report provides information for any student who is enrolled at Kane but is currently not registered for the upcoming semester, in this case, spring 2019. So we work together in identifying who these students are, and again, all of us across different units on campus, also in the schools, and the deans, the faculty, advisors, all of us have been working together to reach out to these students and provide a personal interaction in determining what obstacles they may face in registering. So I do want to take a moment to thank each and every one of you for working with us on this effort, and do know that your outreach has impacted our students, and we have seen a decrease in the students on that list, number of students on that list. So some of the ways we've worked together, for example, again, the faculty advisors, you have sent out personal emails to students, made phone calls. Different departments on campus who may have holds on students' accounts preventing them from registering have contacted students and provided a clear way to help them remove those holds if possible. And our office has been making phone calls as well in connecting students to the appropriate office, because what we want to make sure is that these students don't feel like they're bounced around from one place to another, but do provide that personalized touch in connecting them to the appropriate resource on campus or office that can assist them in moving forward with registration for spring. So again, thank you for that. And the impact, it might seem like it's not making a large impact, but it is. So for example, I've had conversations with students on this list, and it could be something as simple as they didn't know what the hold means, or they didn't know what office to contact, or they didn't know, what form they had to submit. So any personal conversation you have can make a big difference in helping students register, which equates to, making progress toward timely graduation and persisting at the university. So looking at, our current initiative with the ENR outreach. Again, we've all been working together on that. And thank you also for communicating with me. I know I've had contact with a lot of the faculty advisors and colleges on campus in terms of the outreach efforts you've made, and also the outcomes that you've seen from that student outreach. So thank you for that. So I wanted to identify that moving forward, we are working on a more streamlined, effective communication plan for the next cycle of ENR outreach. So that would be something a little bit more coordinated to make sure that students are not receiving any sort of redundant messaging across departments and units. So we will be working on that in the upcoming year, and invite you again to collaborate on this very important initiative with us as we make progress on that effort. I also wanted to identify myself and the Office of Student Success and Retention as a partner for all of you on this initiative and other retention initiatives. Please feel free to contact me directly in my office for any questions or concerns you have in regard to the ENR report, and it could be simply as understanding the report or helping to filter the report, or suggestions for outreach or anything that you want to share with me. I do appreciate that. So please feel free to refer to me and my office as a partner in this very important effort. Again, we do appreciate everything you've done in terms of outreach to our students, and it is making an impact. So over the past year, we have been partnering with OSIS to improve our process and communication and procedures. And so next, I would like to introduce you to Ms. Lucia Tan, who is the brains behind a very important initiative that she has worked on and is going to implement in terms of improving our advisement process. So I'm going to turn it over to Lucia now. Thank you so much.
Morning, everybody. My name's Joe Marinello, and this is Lucia Tan. We're from the Office of Computer and Information Services. And over the past year or so, we've partnered quite closely with the Division of Enrollment Management to bring about some new technologies to help in this effort. One of the technologies that Ms. Tan has developed for us is a database system that takes the information from our student information system colleague and formats it into a much easier to use system. We call it an ENR database, which basically gets you the information of your students that are enrolled and not registered for the upcoming semester, with additional pieces of information that help do the outreach. So we feel that this would be a more effective tool in in discussing the issues with enrollment management to help the enrollment effort. So I want to introduce Lucy, and she'll take you through a demo of the tool, which is currently available in our dean's offices, and then we're hoping to extend it to the rest of the institution for to help with this effort. Thank you.
Good morning. As you can see on the screen, that is the ENR database login screen. At the end here, you will see that the table has been updated, date, timestamp. And right now, I'm going to bring out the example of the college, which is the College of Liberal Arts login. This is the screen that you're going to, when you log in, you will see a lot of kind of filtering. In this part, the two numbers, the first number is the total number of the College of Liberal Arts, the student who currently enrolled but not registered for the next term. And the next number, because one student maybe have more than two advisors, so that number is kind of different. But you can tell the first number is the most current, your own college students. And here, there's one also for the advisor. Through here, you can see under your college, the faculty, I'll put out one of example. For this, this professor, under this professor has two students who do not register for the coming term. And here you will see even they has a hold. A1 hold means the student has a faculty advisor hold. In here you will see the hold category here and also description. After that, you can also see, don't go through the advisor, but you can also see through the whole. The 593 students, they may have no A1 hold, but they do have some hold. For example, for this student, he has A2 or 2A2 hold, which is faculty advisement approval, and also second major and second advisement, such as information that you can go through the filter. From here, you can no A1. You select no A1 hold. You can also see in which college and in which school. Under maybe in history, they have 11 students did not register for the new term, and etc. And that's the kind of helpful tool for you, your own department or your college, that to focus on those group of students that you can maybe easily to resolve their registration or enrollment issue.
Thank you, Lucy. Thank you, Joe. And I want to publicly thank OSIS. They are amazing partners for enrollment management and for academic affairs, and they conceived this based on the feedback that our faculty and that we provided to them. They're constantly supporting the efforts of our administrators, our staff, our faculty, our students. So thank you for everything you do for us. I know it's tough. And we should all thank OSIS. Yes, please. So we know how much our faculty do at Kane University. We ask you to teach classes, we ask you to do research, we ask you to do presentations, to attend professional development, to advise students, to make phone calls to our students. And we're so appreciative and we're so proud of the efforts that you do at Kane University. So again, thank you for everything you're doing for us and for our students. That is all we have in terms of information on the tools that we're providing. We are more than happy to take any questions you may have about any of the content we showed you today, any comments, concerns, feedback. I know there's 2 microphones up front, so if you do have a question, I'd ask that you do come down because we are in a large auditorium and it might be hard for everyone to hear. So I see a young lady making her way down. And again, if anyone has any questions, please make your way up to one of the front microphones.
I just have a quick question. The generation coming up now, generally, they're not using phones, they're texting. Can we text them? Because I've had students this semester that actually one just enrolled, she actually came and met with me during office hours. They're texting though, and it would be a lot easier, I think, to reach them. They check their phone every 10 minutes, even during class. So why not text them? And that way, if there is a conversation that's gonna happen, they'll let us know.
That is great feedback. I can tell you we are texting our students. We text out of enrollment management. So we text very sparingly for our prospective students. Once the students are accepted, we start texting them. Once they enroll, we text them even more. The ENR list that Lucy showed you, we've texted almost every student on that has a valid cell phone this semester, giving them a call to action that they have not yet registered for the spring semester. Please do so at Kane-Wise or call this number. Texting is something that we want to do in a strategic manner. We don't just want to send text here and there. Likewise with emails, we're very strategic with our deployment of emails. Every email that we send has a call to action. And there is such thing as over-communicating. And we're very cognizant of that, especially when it's getting closer to the semester. So we want to make sure that we're not emailing and texting one day and then making a phone call in the same day. We try to spread out all of these touch points, not only for current and returning students, but for our prospective and newly admitted students.
Well, I figure it's spread out if you're telling us to do it 2 weeks after your last text or call.
Yes.
It just seems to make most sense going through the texting, knowing that that's the most likely way we're going to reach them.
Understood.
Since I don't know about you, but I don't answer anything that I don't recognize a phone number.
I think that's very good feedback, which I appreciate you giving us. That'll definitely be something we can discuss internally, and perhaps, again, that's not something we just want to roll out immediately. We want to have a strategic conversation about that and see how that fits into our overall communication strategy. But thank you very much for the suggestion. Yes, ma'am, in the back. All right, you're going to have to talk loud.
Okay. Although the prospective students are probably under 18, to what extent are they covered with confidentiality, FERPA? Do you leave a message with some other person who could pick up the phone?
That's a great question. The question was about FERPA and at what point in terms of age and enrollment does FERPA kick in. So FERPA is it is a Federal Education Rights and Privacy Act that was established by the Department of Education many, many years ago. And it ensures that enrolled students, have a certain amount of privacy in terms of their academic records, their financial records, anything else that is related to their educational experience at an institution. FERPA kicks in once a student registers for classes, meaning that FERPA is not applicable to an applicant, to a prospective student. Once they put a single credit on their transcript, they click register in Kane-Wise or our one-stop register as a student, that is the point that we as Kane University are governed by FERPA. And we cannot release that information, any information out to the public that the student does not give us permission to. We encourage all of our students at our new student and transfer student orientation to allow their family and support members to be a part of their educational experience. So we have a way for students to opt out of FERPA in essence, and to give certain identified people access to their records, so that if a parent does call into you as an advisor, and obviously we want to empower our students and have them be owners of their education, But if a parent does call into us or they call into our student accounting office or registrar, we have a way to look up to see if a student has given permission to this family member or this outside body to speak with Kane University to discuss their educational records. So I would definitely be cognizant of it, be careful, be as broad as possible, but encourage them to follow up with you directly so you can have that one-on-one outreach. Okay, that's very good feedback. Maybe that is something we could potentially incorporate into the E&R database that, that Lucy just showed us. Or maybe there's another method in some of our rosters that we provide to you to give you that type of information. I see Marcia wants to say.
Yeah, sorry. Sorry, I'm just going to jump in. I don't want to get off track talking about FERPA. FERPA applies in two different roles here because we're talking about prospective students and then also enrolled students. So with prospective students, FERPA comes into play the day that they step on campus as an enrolled student and their butt is in the seat on their first day of classes. That's when FERPA applies for prospective students. When FERPA starts to apply for enrolled students, that really is about their personal academic record. So as an advisor, you're part of that personal academic record because you're the assigned faculty member to advise that student to retain and graduate. So FERPA, other than you can't talk to their parents, doesn't apply in terms of the information that you have, because the information that's in that student record for you as an advisor is personally meaningful to them and to you, so that you're able to best advise them as they lead themselves to graduation through your support. So if there's any specific questions around FERPA, I'm going to defer it to our acting registrar, Jennifer Spiegel, who is the FERPA officer for the university. But I wouldn't allow FERPA to derail the conversation here because it really is a support to the student to keep their student record private, quite frankly, from their parents and to themselves. But to us here as a university community who are in the business of supporting and to give them the four-year graduation rate that they've asked us to complete and that they now deserve, let's focus on what we're talking about here, which is these important outreach to not only our prospective students, but our enrolled students. So thanks.
So you're saying that we can leave a message on their home phone saying that we've been trying to reach you? I mean, for a high school student.
Oh, absolutely. You know, one of the things about the question with the text messaging, and yes, we are integrating more text messaging, is that what we're doing throughout the recruitment process is diversifying our communication methods. So there's different ways to outreach to students, whether it's direct mail, whether it's phone calls, whether it's text messaging. And that's why, as you saw within the plan, that's part of a diversified message. And that's why the two things we spoke about today was the two times where we're asking that faculty outreach to the students via phone. So as Dr. Tony said, you know, this is part of an overall plan, but it not only has Dr. Tony's support, but also is a directive of our president, Dr. Farahi. So that's why we incorporated the plan to include emails, as you saw in the plan, to include direct mail, et cetera. So it is a diversified plan, and now it includes text messaging. For our academic partners, for the faculty, Sandy had indicated in her message that the voicemail is very impactful because even though students may not answer the phone or don't really do phone, the fact that if you think about yourself, you think about your children, when you get a voicemail message, you listen to it. And if you listen to a voicemail message and it's from a faculty member who says, hey, just wanted to call you, congratulations on your acceptance to Kane. I'm in the history department. We have great faculty here. They appear on CNN all the time. Just wanted to let you know if you have any questions about the department, please let me know. I'm here for you. And again, hope to see you on campus in the fall. Close, mark complete. And that's it. So a voicemail message can be very, very meaningful and impactful and help our yield to get a prospective student to an enrolled student.
Thank you. For anyone that doesn't know, this is Marcia McCarthy. She's our Vice President of Enrollment Services at Kane University, and she's been a champion behind a lot of these initiatives we've undertaken in the past few years. Yes, sir.
Yes, but FERPA does come into play when we do retention as far as bringing advisement. So if we're calling the house and we're asking why they're not registering, we can't say, well, because of your GPA So we need to know if there's a proper release as far as faculty, if we can talk to the family, if the family member does answer the phone or not. And that's very important.
Okay.
We can't just call, oh, wait a minute, I need to call this person and I'll get back to you. We need it right there in front of us. So it is part of this conversation.
I definitely understand, and I really appreciate that feedback. And this is the type of things we need to hear from our faculty partners to help better guide your calls. So we're going to take that feedback. We're going to work with our OSIS partners to see if that can be incorporated into this database so you can see if a student does have the release. Yes, sir.
It's easy to come up here.
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Hi, Chad. I'm Mark Sapara from the Nancy Thompson Library Learning Commons. Having done admissions in another part of my life, I very much appreciate all the work you put into prospecting the students. I have a question about timing of 2 of the calls related to placement testing. So we know that that part of the process is not really the sexy part for the students. And for some of them, who plan to come to Kane, calling for placement testing, they'll be right on it. For those who are sort of hedging, I'm wondering what the rationale is about calling them before they deposit about a part of the process that isn't a lot of fun.
Okay. So once an applicant is accepted, we have a separate admitted student communication plan. So it's not just phone calls, it's periodic emails. It's emails from each individual college on behalf of their deans talking about their value propositions for their program. So that's one of the things we do. Our placement office also has a separate communication plan, which includes not only emails, it does include phone call outreach. On top of that, we've reformed the placement testing registration process to make it more user-friendly this year based on feedback from our students. So we're having more robust communication around the placement testing experience. And that will also include the new next generational AccuPlacer, which our placement office is launching this year. And then finally, we have a separate communication plan around our exempted students. And these are students who have a high enough SAT or ACT score to exempt them from testing. So we have a separate communication that goes to those students. Every communication is very congratulatory, but this one is saying, skip this step, go straight to your pre-advisement appointment so that when you show up for NSO, you don't have to do any testing, you simply will meet with your advisor and register for the semester. So again, these are all works in progress. We want this feedback. You're making these 7,000 calls as much as our admission staff is. And you as our faculty partners, you have a different lens in the outcomes. So please continue to provide that to us. And if we need to make modifications mid-cycle or annually, we certainly will, because we want to make this process work for everyone involved. Yes, ma'am. Prove it. Understood. So the question was on behalf of this faculty member. What was your name, ma'am? Sue, she's a faculty member. She teaches graduate nursing students, and her request was to have a similar process for the graduate population, it sounds like. This is something that we have rolled out for our freshman admitted students. It is certainly something we can have an internal discussion about rolling out for the graduate population. My understanding is that graduate admissions does send rosters to each department and program coordinator with all their admitted students. But if this is something we need to do more in real time, by all means, if that's a request that you have, we can easily build that process. And that's the type of engagement we're looking to come as a part of this conversation. One thing I did neglect to mention is when I showed you that queue for the faculty acceptance calls, that is all real time. So 2 weeks after our admissions counselor makes that call, 2 weeks to the day and hour, that call will populate. So you could rest assured that that is real-time and accurate data. There is a question in the back.
Hi. One of the concerns some departments might have is the timing for these calls sounds like it coincides with advising current students. And for departments that have a large student body, one of the concerns is when do all of these calls be made? So I know in our department in psychology, the average number of faculty advisees is over 100. So when will we be making these calls to prospective students?
Okay.
While advising our current on-campus students, in addition to teaching, course preparation, and research.
You certainly do a lot. For those that were not able to hear, the question was about timing of the calls and when should these be made, and especially if it coincides with advisement outreach that our faculty are asked to do throughout the year. So we're starting these, our admissions office is starting the fall 2019 accepted calls this week. So within the next 2 weeks, so let's target early February, these calls will start populating in your queues, and hopefully by then we'll have every account set up, we'll do any subsequent training that we need to do. And then is it our hope that you're doing this on a cyclical basis, that we don't want you just to wait until March or April when your queues are 200-300 deep. If you're making these calls strategically throughout the semester, it will not be overwhelming to anyone. I can tell you we have 6 admissions counselors that call every accepted student. Those are 6. We're asking our faculty to partner with us, our 400 plus faculty, or I'm unsure of the count, to assist us with this. But you have support staff, you have faculty, you have people from the dean's office. Discuss this internally within your department to strategize what the best way is. We don't expect a psychology professor to call every psychology student. This can be distributed amongst the whole department, the dean's office, and other parties that may be able to contribute to this. But please don't wait till the last second to do this so it's overwhelming. Be strategic, spread it out as much as possible, and Marcia's going to save me right here, I think.
Yeah, sorry that I keep jumping in, but sometimes having gone into various meetings with academic affairs and with various departments, I can add a little bit more anecdote to what might seem like overwhelming stress or what have you. There was a College of Education retreat that I've told many of you about, and I'm trying to look for the faculty member. But in the conversation, we were talking about the College of Ed's problem with yield that it was experiencing, where we weren't losing market share across the state, and students were going elsewhere for teaching degrees. Frankly, I'm sure that you share my position, which is I don't know why anyone would ever not come to Kane for teaching, because we have the best faculty in teaching, and our reputation shows it with the alumni and where they've grown to as State Teachers of the Year and winning Millikan Awards, et cetera. So that being said, there was a faculty member, and again, haven't seen her yet, who stood up after Dr. Farahi was talking about yield, and she committed to making 25 calls to prospective students as congratulatory calls. And everyone kind of looked like, well, 25 calls, how will that help? Well, P.S., there was 30 faculty in the room, and if 30 people made 25 calls, if everyone had committed to only making 25 calls, they would have been able to make every call to the prospective students that were accepted in the College of Education. So it's not 300 and 400 calls to accepted students, but it's very specific to the calls to the students, rather, that were accepted into your specific degree program. So like, for example, SES, which has a smaller population and indicatively has a smaller faculty group, they have smaller numbers of accepted students and then would make those calls. So what we expect it to be is probably between 25, perhaps 50 for a larger program like biology, but keep in mind that at the end of January and February, we have 85% of our acceptances complete, which means that from January, February, March, April, May, through that period, you have the opportunity to make 25 to 50 calls. And that's when, we're really asking you to make it over that period. So I'm a big math geek, and I love math. So if you take 50 and even divide it over 4 months' time, we're really talking about hopefully making a call a day. 1 call a day, 5 calls a week, and over time, you'll be able to knock off and connect with those students that were most recently accepted to Kane. And as Sandy had indicated, Get them excited about coming here. We have a great community here of staff, administrators, and definitely faculty. That's why we're all here together, working to get students to come, to engage in classes, to get a great education here at Kane, and to graduate. So that's why this partnership is so important. So I'm sorry I keep interrupting, but I felt that that anecdote from a faculty member who, got it and said, I'll make 25 calls. If you're able to share that commitment that she made that day to making 25 calls, that's what we're asking for. Good?
Thank you, Marcia. Good feedback. Is there any other questions? Okay. Oh, we got one more.
So, before you were saying that these lists were being distributed to faculty, who is going to be attached to these lists? Is it just the advisors who are designated in the department? And then whose responsibility, if it's just the advisors, to then distribute to other faculty for help? Because I also have an email now going to the students from my name. So how do I get help if I need help? And then how is this going to impact, we have a checklist of the things that we do as faculty. We have faculty in good standing. What happens if I fall short on my list or the rest of the department falls short on their list? How does that then impact? Clearly it's being monitored, what I do and what I successfully do, and it's all attached to my name. How do I ensure that I remain in good standing and that
Thank you for the question. I unfortunately cannot address that. I'm not on the academic side of the house, and I don't have any part of that. So I would encourage you to have that discussion with your divisional dean, your department head, to strategize that internally. These calls will be designated within your college. So we're working with every collegiate dean to find out who they have identified or will be identifying to make these accepted calls. So that is still a work in progress, which we hope to finalize in the coming weeks. We've had several discussions at our Enrollment Management Committee meetings, which include the deans as well as their support staff within the dean's offices. So we're going to be finalizing that over the next few weeks. Now, you had a question about the emails being attached to you. Could you just clarify what you mean on that? The intention of this system is not to monitor or be a big brother for our faculty, in my view. This tool has been developed to support you to make your life easier. We found that it was a very crude way just to be submitting spreadsheets to faculty, and the feedback we got was they did not like this and it wasn't efficient, which is why we use this tool, which has worked very successfully in our Office of Admissions, and now we're extending it to our faculty partners. I see some wave in the back. Let's have this be the last question since we're running low on time, I believe.
You had said that the faculty members from each department will make phone calls. Psychology department has approximately 1,600 students and approximately 15 faculty members. So each of us will be required to do 100, approximately about that many.
This is incoming students. These are newly accepted students, so those counts might be a little different from what you're quoting. Well, these are phone calls that we've been doing for the past 2 years. So my hope is that at this point that the calls have been, one, been made for the past 2 cycles, but 2, that you have developed strategies to share the workload. I would encourage you to have internal departmental meetings to strategize these things. We have found things that work within our office. For example, our admissions counselors make phone calls, but we also have our student ambassadors at times contributing to these phone calls. We ask other members across the Division of Enrollment Management to contribute to the accepted phone calls. We have our financial aid, the registrar's office. We sometimes have calling campaigns on a certain day, given time, where we'll get everyone in a room and we'll do this. So what may work for one office may not work for another. So please have these internal conversations. Bring us into the conversation if we could lend any support or advice to you. But there's not one correct way to do this for every department across the university. So I see that everyone's packing up. So on behalf of all the presenters, I would like to thank everyone for attending today. Thank you for your partnership and your efforts. And we look forward to bringing in, once again, the largest class of Kean University with your support.